Todd Howe in the house. You might know him on Instagram as NCNO Golf Labs. He's a master club builder and an all-around cool dude. So, Todd, thanks so much for joining us. I'm very
Thanks.
excited to chat golf.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and this is just one of the greatest things about the golf community on Instagram. It's just a lot of really nice people on there.
Yeah,
So
couldn't agree more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, to start us off, why don't you just give us a little bit of a background on, who you are, how you got into the game and what your, I guess, current relationship with the game of golf is.
Well, I guess Judge, my accent gives it away. I grew up in Australia, and I was actually I mean I've been playing golf in some variation since I was pretty small. My father and his parents were members at a golf club in Adelaide, South Australia, which is called the Grange, which is where they held the live event earlier this year. So that was my home course. That's where I grew up playing. And I just used to walk around with my grandmother and my grandfather and my great uncle and hit balls 5 yards. And then as I got bigger, I didn't really take golf seriously until I was in my 20s. And just for reference, I'm 51 now, but I didn't really take it seriously until I was about 22, 23, and then I just really got into it. And this is probably mid to late 90s. I mean, my bag was a Wilson fat shaft driver, and then a full set 1-iron through sand wedge of the King Cobra Series 2 Tour irons, and a Callaway BJ4 putter. And I just fell in love with the game. Interestingly enough, not like I've fallen in love with it now. But I think I got down to about an 8, and this is around 99 or whatever. And then I packed up and moved to the United Kingdom and stopped playing golf for 18 years.
Wow.
So yeah, there is a huge void between the year 2000 in golf for me and 2018, which I've since caught up on. But when I moved to the UK, it was too hard to play golf. And then I ended up doing a bunch of other things. And in 2014, I moved here to the US, and got married. And 2017, my wife at the time had breast cancer and she passed away. And then I moved from Phoenix, where I was living, to Los Angeles. And when I had some time on my hands, I'd go to the local par 3, which is about 2 blocks away. Just started hitting balls and migrated over to the big boy course, which, for me at the time, I mean, I hadn't touched a club in 18 years. And I think the second round out there, I shot a 75.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like riding a bike.
It was pretty crazy. And then I was absolutely hooked.
Wow.
Again. And like my journey from then until now has been a completely different journey to when I was playing in my 20s. And my appreciation of the game is just exponentially, more enjoyable.
I want to get back. I want to get back to, I want to get back to that. Like the kind of the two golf lives that you have, have lived and are living now. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and what makes them different. But going back to your hiatus, I don't know much about golf in the UK. What about it? Yeah. I mean, was it weather or, what about it made it so hard to, to play?
It was a combination of just being in a different place. I just moved to the UK, so there was a whole other world to explore. I mean, I grew up in Australia, which is quite literally, it is so far away from anywhere else. So and then I fell into music and, was a musician for a decade, just over a decade. And, London is it's a big city. You usually don't have a car because it's easy to get around on public transport. And, I just didn't want to carry my golf clubs on public transport. And, for 6 months of the year, there's not a lot of sunlight to play around a golf in. So I just stopped, and it was pretty much, I think I played 2 rounds of golf in Scotland the 2 days leading up to the 2000 Open that Tiger Woods won. And I was there on the Sunday, and then I don't think I touched the club again until 2018, which is absolutely crazy. So,
yeah,
I just went on a completely different journey.
Yeah. Well, and then, yes, for your second round out on a regulation course to be 75, I can understand why. Yeah. You're like, oh man, I could jump right back into this.
Yeah.
So you said,
it was a freak occurrence.
well, it sounds like golf wanted you back just as much as maybe you wanted to jump back into golf. So I think in that moment, whatever entity is out there pulling the strings, said that's what needed to happen. So you'd mentioned that your love for the game is very different this time around. What's that difference?
Yeah, well, I think, man, when I was in my 20s, it was just, I was just young and dumb and wanted to hit a ball as hard as I could. And, I didn't understand the mental game. I didn't understand anything to do about clubs or ball flight or, I just thought you hit a bunch of balls at the range and you get better. Basically, practice makes you better, which it does. But, it was just, I just had no idea about how to play the game, if that makes sense. And,
Yeah.
18 years later, getting out there on those little par threes, which I spent, I would go down there at like 6 a.m, hit a bucket of balls on the range, and then walk over to the par three tee, and I'd go around twice. It's a 9-hole course. I'd go around twice, and it's kind of what I used to do when I was much younger. I'd just walk down to the park and hit wedges from end to end, just to kill time. But for me at that time, just having lost my wife, it was more of a therapy, like, because I found that I could just go out on the golf course and I wouldn't be thinking about anything else other than golf, and that is kind of like that respite, that kind of just alone time. For me, was very therapeutic, and I wanted more of that. And then obviously golf, I just fell in love with the mental game of golf, and I started challenging myself. Almost it became a challenge to improve the mental side of the game, and that was the part that I really loved about it. And that's still probably one of the best parts of the game, to me, is the mental side of golf, and proving to yourself that you can, you know, overcome obstacles, that you can achieve things that you didn't think you were able to achieve on the course. And that's, I just absolutely love that.
I think that's one of the things that we really love about golf as well, is that the game takes on so many different forms, and parodies life in those different forms. Sometimes it is something where you can turn your mind off and have it be a therapeutic, like just ball beating session at the range. Sometimes you're out, horsing around with buddies, and sometimes it's the like seemingly the other end of the spectrum when you're more into like the throes of competition, and the round is coming down and stuff is on the line and your heart's beating fast. And I think that's it's kind of neat to see and sort of hear through your experience that all the different facets of golf still sort of intertwine to create sort of this picture of a golfer, or what your history, your identity of golf is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think I've just, I, I just wanted to, use golf as my escape. Like it's a very personal thing for me. Um, I don't think there's a sport, um, quite like it. And I think it's a true test, the truest test of self, which is a cliche. But for me, having gone through what I've gone through, it was like, I just, I just want to prove to myself that I can do something that I didn't think I was able to do,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's, at the time that was like getting back down to single digits. That was breaking 80.
You did that
Or
right away.
yeah, while doing it again, doing it a second. Or, you know, getting to scratch, which, I set myself a goal of getting to scratch by the time I was 50. I'm 51 now. And I did it. And, that was just like, I'm like, it was kind of like shrugging it off, going, well, God, if I can do it, anyone can do it. You just, you just have to put in the time, but you'll get there. And then, you know, I think I had a period of about 10 or 15 rounds where I was just playing lights out golf and I had 4 rounds of 3 under. And that's kind of what got me down there, but I couldn't maintain it. And, I also kind of lost my way after that because I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve and I didn't have any other goals. But yeah, it's just been an incredible experience for me, golf. And I'm definitely one of the obsessed like you guys.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'd mentioned that one of the things that in this kind of renaissance of your relationship with the game is things like understanding equipment, understanding ball flights, and for those of you who don't know that are listening, and I mentioned it previously, but Todd is a club builder. He's works with a lot of. I know you work with 14 Strixon, a couple other pretty high profile, high quality club builders or club manufacturers. So your stuff. Where at what point did you jump into the gear and club building part of your relationship with the game?
That was pretty quickly after I got into golf, got back into golf. Um, it started from regripping clubs. I would take them into the local, we have Roger Dunn here, which is a worldwide golf shops. And, they've got a bunch of stores around here and you take them in and, they regrip them for you. And then there was one occasion where they said, "Oh, we can have them back to you in 3 days." And I'm like, this is just painful. So I just taught myself how to regrip my clubs over the kitchen sink with $20 worth of materials. And that was the entry point into kind of where I am now, building golf clubs. And so and pretty quickly after that, I had a couple of repairs that I needed to get done. And again, what I found out pretty quickly is that there are no good club builders in this city. And it's a city of 20 million people in the greater Los Angeles area. And you would just be gobsmacked at how few good club builders there are and how difficult they are to find. And I just had some bad experience with a couple of builders. And I was like, you know what? And that was coupled with very early on, I joined the TXG Discord. This has got to be back 4 years ago at least. And there were just some hugely knowledgeable guys on there. I'm talking, one of the guys on there is a caddy at Augusta National, Sage Valley, and he's been building and fitting for 25 years. And, there was just a core group of half a dozen of us that have since broken away to our own, just guys chatting on another Discord. and we're all still in touch. But yeah, they were so giving of their time, and I learned so much from them that, I just decided one day to rebuild my own clubs, and that if I was gonna do this, then why not make mistakes on my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I got pretty proficient at it, and then I think really just the fact that there were no club builders here. I saw a gap, and if I'm having these troubles, pretty much everyone else in at least the San Fernando Valley where I live, and on the other side of the hill over in West LA, they've got to be having the same problem. Um, so I started NCNO Golf Lab and started building clubs for other people. And my first client was from San Diego, and we kind of met halfway because I really wanted the business to build his clubs, and he loved them, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's been one hell of a year. And I've only been, NCNO Golf Lab's only been going for 12 months.
Wow.
But it's just been a really awesome experience. And the things that I've learned in club building is, even over the last year, like I knew a lot before I started, but there are so many things that only come with experience. And that's from building clubs, set after set after set.
If I can
Yeah.
interject, just in case, one of our hopes with this is to kind of target people who are maybe newer to the game of golf, but wanting to newly kind of take it seriously. And I think we should highlight the difference between, like, if you just walk into like a Golf Galaxy and get fit, and they're gonna, like, they offer club building services, but I think there's a notable difference between something like that and a true club builder. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know. It is. What would you say to
Definitely,
that?
well, there definitely is, but I think the problem with these big box stores, when they do club building, is that they have so much volume, and they're paying young guys minimum wage to build your golf clubs. And the good club builders there move on real quick.
Yeah,
And so
it's
you're
sort of like
always,
a
yeah.
yeah, it's like a
So
craftsmanship kind of
Mm-hmm.
differentiation between somebody who's like
it
they are a
is.
club builder versus someone who is employed somewhere that does club building
Yeah, that
services. So
works in the repair shop and
yeah,
builds clubs. Yeah, it's absolutely different. And you know, I will say this: club building isn't difficult. You guys know this too. It's a combination of common sense, epoxy, and some mathematics, right? Like it's really is, and and care.
Yeah, I think that's
I
the key.
cannot.
hmm
That's the
hmm
key. And
You
that's
have
the
to.
big difference between, I mean, personally, that's the why I got into it, is that it was the care aspect. I had a set of clubs regripped at a big box store that I won't name. And they came back crooked and twisted. And when I took them back and said, "Hey guys, what's this?" And they said, "Oh, that's, that just happens." I was like, "No, I can't accept that." And so that's what prompted me to learn. And the one thing is that I learned, and you probably learned pretty quickly, is that it is not difficult to put a club together. It is heat and glue and sandpaper and an acetone. And the missing ingredient, which I think Nathan so eloquently put, between someone who is a club builder and someone who just happens to work in a building that offers those services, is the amount of care and pride that you take into that work.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And you know, when a +2 handicap walks through your door, and you know they're used to hitting their targets on a dime, like you better be good. Like you you better know your stuff, and you better be able to build him exactly what he wants. And like the big box stores can't really do that with the turnover that they have with their staffing. And it's just, you have to care about their game as if it's your own game. and their clubs as if they're your clubs. And that's kind of that's always been my philosophy. And it's been that coupled with always having a player first approach to what I'm doing, you know, and my clients, like I'm a player first. I build clubs, but I'm a player first, you know, so I want them to play good golf. And when I apply what I apply with club building, it's always with that mindset of, you know, making sure that they are genuinely playing their best golf.
Do you think that what you've learned in your experience with club building has influenced the way that you go out and play, or, you know, has it changed the way you look at the game, or has it, you know, improved your game in any facet with
Oh,
a better
100%.
understanding of how things come together?
Yeah, 100%. And look, you know, being a club builder and having deals with people like Fujikura and, you know, shaft manufacturers, you know, you know, through the Discord, the TXG Discord, and through just knowing those guys for so long and talking with them, I understood things, you know, about you know, club and ball data, and you know, what my windows were and what the spin rates should be for all of my clubs and that kind of thing. And you know, my entire set just over my shoulder, it's all been put together through eyeballing. And you know, that's basically how I've done it. I mean, you can I don't know about you guys, but like I can tell on a range whether the ball flight is correct and whether it's spinning the way it should be, or whether it's spinning too much, or whether it's, you know, not spinning enough and falling out of the sky, or like understanding club path and stuff like that. Like understanding like the shot, having a look at a shot shape and kind of just telling by the shot shape how you know what you've done with your strike to achieve that. Like you then know how to rectify it. I think that's the thing that's really helped me. And I would say that there are probably most golfers, like if they're say double digit golfer or whatever, they don't understand that most of the direction of the ball comes from the club face, where the club face is pointing. I mean, it's 75-80%, you know, varies obviously depending on which club, but you know, just square that club face. Like do everything you can to square that club face. And I think that for me was probably when I understood that, I became a much better player. You know, because all of my practice was devoted to getting that club face, doing anything I could to get that club face square. And that was kind of the first step, but like we could continue. I could talk for ages.
No, I think that I know like I've been building my own clubs very casually for like the last couple of years. I'm just now really starting to get into the real nuts and bolts and kind of the data around club setup, but I've been super into, you know, the data around swing, you know, club data, ball data. And I mean, just having an understanding again of like what's actually under the hood, whether that's your equipment or your own game, I think makes you a better player. To your point, you know, when you're hitting balls on the range and you're seeing big push draws, like understanding what's driving that, or, you know, or consequently like pull hooks, like they're both going right to left technically, but those are two very different club paths, and understanding the mechanics that go into why one is one way and one's the other. And, you know, and if you try to treat those two results the same and diagnose them and treat them the same way, you're going to, you're going to like implode, because you're doing two completely different things. And if you don't understand that, if you don't understand why one is starting right and then going left and one's starting left and going lefter, um, like you're going to, you know, work yourself into a knot. And I know like I'm just starting to now understand how lie angle impacts things and how improper lengths can impact things and bounce and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, there's no question there. It's more of just like a conversation piece of saying like, for those of you, going back to what Nathan was saying, a demographic that we're trying to target is folks that are maybe COVID golfers that have kind of just gotten into the game and they're starting to get to the point where, they really want to improve. And one of the first things I think I would tell someone is like, go get on a launch monitor and maybe ask someone who knows what they're talking about or knows what they're looking at to explain to you what these things mean. What is face to path? What is face to target? What is angle of attack? Like what do all these things mean? And then once you kind of start getting an understanding of that, you can self-diagnose to a certain extent. You can at least say like, okay, this is happening. That means I'm doing this. Now, whether or not you can figure out a way to move away from those feels without help, that's subjective and that's case by case. But 100%. Knowing is half the battle. And I think a lot of people just don't know. And I know myself included up, until probably about 3 years ago, I had no idea. I would hit a shot and I don't know why it was doing that. But now, kind of nerding out on the data aspect of it, which I think is one of the biggest advancements in amateur golf probably in the last 30 years is like this last 5 years of launch monitor data being available to not just the elite level touring pros, but like I can get I can go out and get essentially the same exact data as a $25,000 TrackMan unit for under $3,000 with 3 different manufacturers. And that's that's mind blowing.
It's insane how far technology's come in golf. Going back to, pre-2000. I mean, we had no idea, like you would ask your mate what iron they hit into a par 3 and you'd hit the same iron because you thought if you just hit it harder, it goes further, and like mechanics, all of that kind of stuff. We didn't have any idea about that. Like it was the dark ages in the 90s. It's what it feels like now. But, I do a bit of help. I give people help with driving. And I was listening to your last podcast where you don't offer swing advice, and I'm the last person.
I'll take it. If it's driving advice, I'll take it.
Yeah. I'm the last person who offers swing advice, right? But, it's easy with a driver for me to diagnose, go out on the range with someone and help them fix their driving or improve their driving because, there's really only one of 5 different shot shapes. You got a straight shot, you got a draw, you got a fade, and then you've got a hook and a slice and, blocks as well, blocks and double crosses. But, I'm able to understand what they're doing pretty quickly. And, I try and instill to anyone that, because I spent a month dialing in on the range, working like a madman, dialing in a fairway finder. Because to me, I'm only 100 mile an hour swing speed, right? So it's important that I hit those fairways because if it's a long par 4 and if I'm in the trees, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
So I just look at driving as it serves a single purpose, and that's putting, getting you a shot into the green in regulation. Like, I don't care about distance. I don't care about anything else other than being in position. So I just work like a dog on the range and just worked on that same feel, which is like a little fade. And, most dog legs, or try and play as straight as I can, but with maybe some deviation here or there. Most dog legs you can play a straight shot. You don't need to play a fade. You don't need to try and play a draw, which it's a hard shot right off the tee. Even for a single digit or a scratch golfer, it's a hard shot to try and manufacture. So just keep it straight, keep it simple, and just work on one feel, like work on one shot shape, squaring that face first, and just getting that ball, drills where you would just, you know, imagine a fairway and try and hit the fairway and just keep going, keep going, keep going. And then lo and behold, I'm hitting 10, 12 fairways around.
Yeah.
Or if I'm not hitting fairways, or even if I'm having a bad day, I'm in the rough or the short rough, and I've still got a shot to the green. Job done. And it's a feel that if you can master it, then it just requires maintenance. Like, you don't have to do anything else, and then you're hitting fairways. Move on to the next thing, ball striking with your irons. It's like that was kind of. Mastering the driver was the first thing for me that was like, yeah, man, I can, now I'm really like want to see how far I can take it.
Yeah. I've dug in a little bit to the decade golf stuff with Scott Fawcett, and I don't know how it gets pretty dense, and I don't know how deep I'd want to go into it, but there is one, and you just brought it up. There's one like pillar or philosophy that he stands by, is that like your driver, you have a stock shot, and that's all you ever play. Like you're not trying to do anything with the driver but hit your stock shot, which is, it sounds like to you is like, hey, that's my fairway finder. Like, just get it in play. And so, like the first time I heard him say that, I was like, I'm going to subscribe to that, only because I love the simplicity of it, of just like, you hit one shot with your driver. You are not trying to hit a punch driver, or, like a low roping draw driver, or this, that, or the other. It's, you hit your driver swing and you pick the line that's going to be as successful as possible with that swing. And that's all you do. And then you can try to get cute with everything else, but you're not going to do it with the driver. And that sounds like that was probably one of the catalysts for you being able to reach your goal of scratch is really figuring that out.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. That's a tough shift in perspective, just playing for position with the driver versus distance. I mean, it's the longest club in the bag. We hit it the furthest. So you kind of naturally think like, I'm gonna let the big dog eat. But, really, yeah, to yield better scoring opportunities, it's more, I use this club to position myself appropriately, and be in play, like you say, set yourself up for a shot into the green. So that's definitely a different shift in perspective, but I think that's an important one.
Oh, for sure. That was definitely the first. That kind of sent me on my way, or further down the rabbit hole, however you want to, whichever way you want to look at it. But, it's the simpler you make golf, the easier it gets, I think. Make no mistake, it's the hardest sport on earth, but like, seriously, if you simplify it, simplify your ball striking, simplify your short game. People try and do all these crazy shots, and and I know people have multiple wedges, and there's different approaches to how to play wedges greenside and all that kind of stuff. But like, with that too, I was just like, you know what? I'm a field player. I'm going to use my 58 pretty much from wherever I am. And the less shots I have, like, learn how to play those shots as well as I can. And only when I can do that, I might introduce another shot, another type of shot, or like expand my wedge game. Simplify it first, master it, and then expand it, I think is.
Yeah. What's that famous martial arts quote where it's like, I don't fear the man who's practiced 1,000 kicks one time, but I fear the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times. So it's, take one wedge, hit a stock chip, and get really good with it, and then diversify, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, man, I mean, we could go a million ways on talking about this stuff, but the mental side of the game too is just the brain is a muscle and it takes time. You just have to train your brain. Like how do you get over being nervous on a 3-footer or a 4-footer? You got to put yourself in those positions enough times where you get over it. And that's the only way you can do it, and man, I've seen club champions 3-putt from 10 feet. I've seen pretty much everyone that I played with in competition miss a 3-footer or miss a 2-footer, just tap in stuff.
Right.
They're just not focused. They're not concentrating, or they're nervous, or like it happens to everyone. You just need to be cognizant of the fact that it's always a learning process. The only way you can improve is by putting yourself in those positions and just keep doing it. Yeah.
One of the things, I mean, you had brought up the brain aspect of it, of training your brain. One of the things that I've been like messing around or thinking about more, like really kind of meditating on, I guess, is the like that mind body connection. So I saw a video, someone talking about, everyone talks about the pre-shot routine, and that's something that I'm working on is just getting like very ritualistic so that you can kind of turn your brain off a little bit and just go through the motions and hit shots, especially in high pressure situations. But one of the things from like a learning perspective that I've never really paid attention to, that I've seen brought up a couple times recently, like in the last week or so, is this idea of like the post-shot routine, specifically as it relates to trying to ingrain feels. So when you hit a shot and it works out really well, instead of just like kind of taking yourself out of that moment immediately to like either celebrate or pick up your bag and move on because you're excited, but like sitting there for a second or two and just like being very aware of what you're feeling, what your body feels like, like what your hands feel like, the balance of, within your feet, so that you can kind of connect your brain to that really good shot so that you can come back to it and say like, okay, like I know what that feels like I'm going to go try to recreate it. And I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just something that like that idea of like training your brain, and with golf being so mental, I think I've always attributed that adage of golf being mental, or the toughest part of golf is the 6 inches between your ears. I always thought that as like a pressure thing, like a competition thing, like I'm a nervous thing. But I think I'm starting to learn that it's more more applicable, or as applicable to like the actual learning process, that it's so much of like learning how to play golf, and even like mechanically, it's really not like it's not as much like the movements or the muscles or any of that. It's like getting your brain to recognize and internalize and allow good feelings to take root. And also at the same time, which makes it a little bit of a kind of like golf is a dichotomy in this way in a lot of ways, but this especially, that in order to get there, sometimes you have to feel very uncomfortable for a while so that you can get to that good place. And I think
mechanically or mentally or both.
I mean, both. I mean, you have to, and it's that's goes back to this idea that golf is like this fantastic parody for life. Like if you want to get to the good times, sometimes you have to go through the bad times, and whether or not that's of your own doing or something that you're a victim of. Like I'm thinking back to, you had mentioned that your wife passed away. Like you were a victim of that circumstance. Right. And from that, you use golf as an outlet to, to distract. And what it's led to is an enjoyment of a really wonderful game at a level that you previously didn't have. And so like, it's just this give and take that golf has, and is like, I mean, it's one of the things about the game that's so frustrating, but it's also makes it one of the most rewarding things that, like, I think you can choose to do, as like a recreational activity. It's just is to kind of like put yourself through that and come out on the other side and say, I did it. And, and have goals and reach them, and like have the discipline to, go through those tough feels. That's, again, it's just like an allegory for everything else outside of the golf course. It's it's really beautiful if you kind of get philosophical about it.
I hadn't even thought about post shot routine, absorbing the good shots, maybe just purging the negativity immediately if you hit a bad shot. But maybe I do that subconsciously more than I think. But like especially the good shots, I don't really sit there and think about things like feels where perhaps I should.
Yeah,
that's definitely something I'm going to incorporate into
yeah.
my game.
I just like today when I just putted around a little bit and I recognized that after I hit a good, what I felt like is a good putt, I was like so quick to break out of it and move on to, like move on and go try to recreate that, like, couldn't recall like what got me there. I couldn't, like, even in that moment, I couldn't be like, oh, okay, like, what did I do? What did that feel like? How can I recreate that? And it's like, oh my God, I should have just waited 3 seconds to like let that, the rest of it download into my brain.
Yeah.
And then like be able to recall that. And I literally, I wouldn't even have noticed it had I not saw someone bring it up on social media, like 3 days ago. And I was like, I didn't, and the first time he brought it up or he had mentioned it, I was like, I don't know if I get that. I don't know if that makes sense to me. But then when I started trying to pay attention to it today, I was like, oh man, I can see why that would be really beneficial to just slow down a little bit, just take a beat, absorb what just happened, good or bad. I think you can also sit there and like absorb that something happened that you did not want to happen and tried your best to have like an objective reaction to it, to say, hey, that didn't do what I wanted to do. Why do I think that happened? Okay. And let's move on. And I think that's like a good way to kind of like process or like grieve that shot in a way. But, like it's just as important to do that with the good shots too, so that you can kind of like lock lock that away and hold on to it rather than just kind of let it evaporate. And I've noticed that I've probably just let like a lot of good shots evaporate. I'm not like I'm potentially not, um, you know, realizing like the full weight of those successes and, being able to recall them down the line.
Well, I think we're predisposed to focus on the negative, right? So, at least that's what I read, but it's true. I mean, you hit probably more good shots than you hit bad shots in a round, and you fixate on the bad stuff. If you can get yourself to a point, this year's kind of been transformative for me. Like probably the last 3 months, my swing was in the toilet this time last year, and I was getting towards a 4 handicap from where I was, and I couldn't hit an iron at all. And then I went and saw my swing coach and said to him, "Look, dude, if you don't if I can't leave this session without knowing my fundamentals of sound, otherwise I'm going to blow my brains out. And and we went through everything, and he's very good at giving you the tools by explaining when you hit a good shot, what you did, right? And you commit that to memory. And then, like, I walked out of that session thinking, you know what? Okay, I got the fundamentals. I just got to grind this out. And it took and I'd had back issues. So, we had mechanical things that we had to fix and whatnot. And, it took about a good 6 to 7 months to fix for those mechanical issues to stick. And then I started working on the mental game. And I honestly can say, like, the last 3 months, I haven't had a single mechanical thought out on the golf course. It's just literally been, and it's been the most enjoyable 3 or 4 months or period of golf that I've ever had, right? Because all I'm doing is like, and I'm feeling fresh after a round because I'm not expending mental energy either. Like between shots, before shots, after shots, it's just like the mechanics are working. All I need to do is visualize the target, see that shot shape that I want to play, or just see that ball landing close to the pin or whatever it is, and hit the ball. And then once I've hit the ball, I don't think about anything else. Like, we have conversations, walk to the ball. Like, it's I did a lot of work in that area too, but it's just been really good not to have mechanical thought on the golf course. And I think most players, like, we get back, we're talking about routine, right? Pre-shot routine, man, I got mates who, like, their pre-shot routine's 50 seconds long.
Yeah.
When they're standing on the tee, like, couple of practice swings and doing this and that. I'm wondering what the hell's going through this guy's head, right? And I just step up to the ball and I hit it. Like, visualize the target. That's where I want to land the ball. Step up, bang. And if it goes there, great. If it doesn't, it's probably not going to be too far off, or maybe it's a mistake, but, like, can't do anything about it. That's why I just think the mental game is so much more important than we think in the game of golf. And that's the thing I really love about it.
Last time Nathan and I played together, he said something that stuck with me, and I say it a lot now. Is that this idea that it's it's an event. It's not a pattern. So when things go wrong, I've been trying to, like, remind myself, like, hey, like, that was just an event. Like, that drive that I blocked, into the highway on the right there, like, that's just an event. That's not indicative of who I am as a player. It's just something that happened. And, like, if it starts to become a pattern, I'm also know that I'm good enough to, like, figure out how to reverse course there. But it's helped me kind of stay within myself during a round when I feel like the wheels are falling off. It's like trusting, that, like you said, that your fundamentals are sound. Like, it's there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just, you've got so many other things maybe weighing it down that it's hard to be as mobile as you once were, like, figuratively speaking, from a mental standpoint. And so I think, like, yeah, to that point, the mental side of the game, especially as you get into, like, our level of play, which is, like, like mid single digit to scratch, like, that's that's where the mental aspect of it becomes a much, like, proportionally a much bigger part of your score than mechanical stuff. Because, when you're, from a mechanical standpoint, when you're trying to shave strokes, you're talking about 1/10 of a stroke here, 1/4 of a stroke there, spread out across many, many rounds. But, the only way,
sorry,
I was going to say, the only thing that you can impact in that current round that you're in is not necessarily, like, anything mechanical. It's like how you're managing your emotions, how you're managing your reactions to shots and stuff like that.
Yeah. And decision making, course management, decision making, a mental game is like, you know, you got to trust yourself that you can hit the shots, and then it's all mental game. I suffer a lot from compounding errors. You try and hit a shot that you like. I mean, it happens. You try and hit a shot that you think you can hit, and you can't hit it, and you're not playing the percentage shot. Like, uh, I pulled one into the trees on a par four, long par four, uphill. Had about 200 in, and it's uphill. There's a bunker on the right, falls all the way off, to the right side of the green. And I'm like, I can hit that 200-yard shot with a 7-wood and hit that tiny, George C. Thomas designed green.
Sure.
And that was just the most. Instead of accepting the fact
you missed the fairway by a mile. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, and right, and then instead of accepting my bogey, that look, let's just give up the par and accept the bogey, and just stick a 4-iron up there, short of the green, and try and get it up and down. And
I think that
might just make par. Like, it's like, no.
That's been a theme, I think, of this first season of our show here, where it's kind of like, let's talk about what you really have control over within the game of golf, and set up our expectations accordingly to that. I mean, all this talk about like, there's a lot of talk right now about, why would you shouldn't strive for consistency within your game and within your swing. Everybody talks about like, oh, I just want to get more consistent. I want to get more consistent with my ball striking, blah, 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 blah. And the fact of the matter is that, we as humans are different every day. And I might not feel any different, but I just am. You see it highlighted in like long drive guys. You'll see like Martin Borgmeyer, if you watch any of his stuff on YouTube, he'll have days where he's like, nah, the CNS just isn't there. And so his nervous system just isn't functioning at its peak that day. And that happens. Our bodies have different rhythms and fluctuations, daily, monthly, yearly. So there are some things like that are just outside of our control. So really striving to make the exact same swing day to day, or even within a round, is sort of a losing battle. It's fruitless. And really what we should be striving for is more like skill acquisition in ranges. And like, I know that, like you were saying to your coach, like my fundamentals are solid. Like, I know my path isn't crazy open and out, or my face isn't wildly, one or the other. I'm not aligned ridiculously this way or that way. Your tempo's not completely out of whack. So long as you're within these kind of like standard deviation, these means of normal functional basics and fundamentals, then from there, our goal really should be to stop trying to become a robot and hit the same thing, but allow our natural athleticism to shine through, which is where we forget everything mechanically. Just make sure that you've got your kind of within neutral ranges or like functional ranges, and your foundations are solid, and then forget all about it and move into, like you're saying, like target based, where you're reacting more. You're not spending 50 seconds making sure your thumb is exactly at 12:05 on the grip, and that your right hand overlaps it just right. But then, that kind of feels different today. I don't know why. Maybe my hand's a little sticky, and then I got to re-grip, and then I got to get my feet aligned just right. But this foot's turned out a little too much, and it's like, that stuff doesn't matter. Just stand up there and swing at it, and react.
Well, that's mechanical thought right there, right? So, and Rotella talks about that all the time, Bob Rotella.
Yeah.
The mechanical thought is a killer on the golf course. I mean, you just, you just have to not think about it. Like,
you can't control it, so you might as well not.
Yeah. I never take a practice swing on the tee box. I never take a practice swing on anything. In fact, now I've stopped taking practice swings altogether. If I have a wedge in my hand and I'm greenside, then I'm testing the grass. That's all I'm doing. I'm not actually, trying to get my tempo right or anything like that. I'm just literally like in my mind
feeling how the club gets through the turf and
trying to be as free as possible everywhere on the golf course, and I've like Bob Rotella's stuff is incredible. Like, the guy really knows his shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that when I first kind of listened to all of his audiobooks. And I did listen to them all. But then I found another one. I found a book called The 8 Traits of Champion Golfers by the Golf Psych guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more of Rotella's very, it's just the polar opposite to Bob Rotella. It's a practical guide or an accompaniment. In my eyes, it's like a perfect companion to everything that Bob Rotella teaches you. But this has exercises in there. It allows you to identify and rate on a scale of 1 to 10 all these different 8 traits that champion golfers have, either in check or whether you're low on the scale, whether you're high on the scale. And it's things like desire. I really want to get back out there and play a good round at this course. And then it's like, adios, because you've got too much desire. Like, I really want to hit this green, or like all of those things. Focus, like it's right here. It's a plug, shameless plug, but it's I read it all the time, actually. But it just opened my eyes that there were things that I was doing, or just traits of my own that I was too focused in one area, or I just had too much desire here, or just on the scale I was kind of like way off, or didn't have enough of. And that really helped me. Like things like helping your mate find a ball, find the ball, spending 4 minutes over there finding his ball, because you're a good mate, as opposed to just concentrating on your own game, or being too social on the course. Like I've tried very hard to, like, unfortunately I don't look for a lot of people's balls because I'm there to play my game. Like it's, it might seem antisocial, but it's one of those things that, like, it takes me completely out of my game. So I decided that I'll have a quick look and then I'm going to head over and I'm going to be focusing on getting my yardage for my next shot and, staying in my own rhythm, I guess.
Well, and I'd argue that's better for pace of play anyway. So I think you're probably doing a service to the rest of the field at that point.
Yeah, part of that too is it's like if my ball goes in the trees and I'm, it looks like there's no chance of finding it, I'm not going to look for it. I'll just take an unplayable most of the time. I'll look for 30 seconds, but I'll go, I'm never going to find this, man. I'll just play an unplayable or whatever, So it's like, well, maybe they should too. Yeah.
Well, gosh, the time kind of flew here. So I do think we probably need to have another conversation soon. Cause I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface on all the stuff that we could have talked about. But, I think we'll end on one thing just cause, coming up on the end of the year, this is usually around the time folks are, starting to put their resolutions list together, goals for the next year. We discussed some of our goals recently, which will actually come out on next week's episode, but time is weird because this episode is not going to come out for a long time after that. But, and we set some goals for ourselves for for the podcast. But do you have you thought about, any of your golf related goals for 2024? And if you have, would you be comfortable sharing those with us?
Yeah. One is to get healthy. I want to, I got about 30 pounds to lose, and I want to get stronger and faster naturally. If that's a couple of miles an hour, great. I'm not going to do swing speed training. I don't believe in any of that stuff. So, it's going to be natural, something that I can control. That's one. And just generally get more healthy. Pretty bad diet. Yeah, I do want to parlay, my good golf from the second half of this year. And I want to, I would like to I don't want to say I'd like to get to this or that, but I want to be a better golfer by about 3 or 4 shots around. And be shooting around par. Like I want to eliminate the barriers of like, oh, I want to break par, or,
right.
I want to get to a +1, because that's more of a hindrance. I just want to become a more consistent golfer by about 3 or 4 shots. I think that's it. And then I want to be a better putter. I love putting, and I've never been good at it. And I work my butt off, to improve my putting. And I want to be able to make more putts inside 10 and do whatever it takes. Because and it's just because I'm not naturally gifted, so it's that's kind of I just want to get better at it. So overall,
I'm right there with you. I'm a terrible putter. So Nathan's a great putter. So he said he's going to teach me how to putt this year. So
for sure,
you can do anything. You do anything you set your mind to. Absolutely anything. So yeah,
very cool.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, I think we're probably gonna be having another conversation here, not too distant future. But it's been great.
Selfishly, I've got club building questions for myself.
Dude, hit me up. Just DM me, call me.
Well, that's a good quick plug. You can find Todd on Instagram, and NCNO Golf Labs. NCNO Golf Lab rather. I'll throw a link to his Instagram page in the show notes. And if you're local, if you're in the Los Angeles area, and you need some club building done, hit him up. He does phenomenal work, from what I've seen on Instagram. And I know a thing or two about club building, so I feel like I can say with conviction that I would highly recommend your services. So
I appreciate it.
It's
been a pleasure to meet you guys.
Yeah, honestly. This was a really, really fun conversation. I had an absolute blast, so I'm excited to do it again soon.
Likewise.
Cool. All right.